The very fact that I'm standing here today as a filmmaker is pretty surprising, isn't it? I mean, 5 years ago, I hadn't touched a camera in my life before. Didn't know anything about editing, and I mean, the thought at this time being invited to talk to you, the TED audience, would have occurred quite silly to me. In my teenage days, I was actually dreaming of becoming a famous director, but taking filmmaking up as a profession was something that seemed totally out of reach for me. Today, I'm making my living by creating video in two pretty interesting niches. The first part of my week I'm spending in an agency, which is dedicated to work for non-profits and charities. And the second part of my week I'm doing mountain bike films. That is, films which I'm trying to inspire people to get out there in the mountains and ride their bikes. What I'd like to share with you today is my story of getting here. It is a story about the power of hands-on learning and, of a childhood dream coming true. What you're seeing up there are stills taken from an animated film. This film was created by my grandfather. My grandfather was an extraordinary man. He returned quite late from Russia, where he was held as a prisoner of war in World War II. And he took care of his family by working as a painter in the very mundane sense of the word, that he put hangings on people's walls. And at heart, I'd say he was an artist, because he did paintings, he did drawings, he played the violin, he played the organ, not very good, but with a lot of passion. And he did these films. But these were the 70s. Remember, he was slicing up small stripes of 8mm film. He was recording on compact cassettes, soundtracks, and we're trying to sync it up. There was an awful lot of work. And these films had titles like Tom Goes Whitewater Kayaking. Tom Meets the Sheriff with a Blue Star. This is pretty awesome. I mean, imagine you're a 3-year-old kid and your grandfather is creating films where you star in, where you experience all kinds of adventures. Today, I wonder sometimes what direction my life would have taken if my grandfather would have lived longer. He died when I was very young, much too young to pick up a camera myself, and so I forgot about filmmaking. At least for a couple of years. I was at the age of 18, 19 when I was wondering on what to do with my life, and I wish I had some advice like dare to fail earlier. Quite useful, I think, because I was thinking it would be pretty cool to go to film school, but I never got around to apply for it because I had no experience in filmmaking and I had no clue on how to get it. It was only until I stumbled upon this little plastic box up there. I guess most of you will know what it is, will have seen it somewhere. You can't go to a ski resort these days without seeing someone with it on your head. It makes you look kind of stupid, but no one seems to care, I guess. This is a helmet camera. It's cheap enough, it's easy enough, and it's small enough to take wherever you are and take some quite high-quality pictures with it. I got this camera and suddenly I could connect all these lines between my desires, between my talents. And I started to film what me and my friends were doing out there in the mountains. I was an avid, passionate mountain biker and snowboarder at this time. And I soaked up every tutorial, every good one, every bad one that was out there on the internet, and I learned to make films. I learned to edit. And I put together my first film and I uploaded it to the internet. I got 10 views, pretty proud of it. 10 people watched my film. Then my views went up as a friend of mine shared it on Facebook. It almost doubled. But sooner or later, to my surprise, this whole thing started to gain momentum. I got emails from all over the world, comments from people who seemed not only to like my films, but who seemed to relate to it, who felt inspired by it. It was only until I got this email that I sensed there might be more to it than a hobby. The email went something like that. hi, we're doing this film festival here in Banff, Canada, and we've seen your films. We think they're pretty good. Maybe you would like to submit them, and eventually we're going to show them. I was like, what? I mean, I don't know if you've heard about Banff Mountain Film Festival, but this is where the big guys are, the mountaineers, doing extreme stuff, expeditions. And yeah, after that, the whole thing started to go on. People asked me if I would be available for hire, if they could commission films to me. I went to my boss and said, you know, I've got this mountain bike film thing going on the weekends. Do you think I could take off a couple of days this summer? And he gave it a thought, watched some of my films, said, hey, what do you think about becoming the video guy in the agency? Well, here I am. I think it's a fairly typical story of our time, because never before I was able to learn something like that hands-on, because the equipment was not available. And never before was a chance for someone working in a niche like I am to get an audience worldwide. So I think it would be pretty good to have a short glimpse at one of my films. It was one of my early ones. I'd like to show you about 30-40 seconds just to give you an impression of what I'm talking about. Basically, this film is called 10 Things I Have Learned About Mountain Biking. And I would like to round this talk up by sharing with you some of the things that I have learned along my journey here. Hoping that this will help some of you who are interested in taking up creative work, which might help them, and maybe it will inspire some of you to actually go for what you're interested in. What I came up with are 5 things I have learned about working creatively. The first one is, do it and you will learn it. I mean, I was already 34 years old when I started this whole thing. I was 38 years old when I turned in a profession. That's pretty old. And only a decade ago, movies or moving images were produced by highly professional film crews, by big TV teams. There was always a lot of technology involved, a lot of money involved. And this was something that stood in my way of becoming a filmmaker earlier in my life, I guess. But something constitutional has changed here. What we have been witnessing during the last couple of years is the democratization of filmmaking. There are some people who call it the DSLR revolution. This is related because a lot of this started when these photo stills cameras got the video mode, and they were capable of producing beautiful cinematic images at a very low price. I'd say today anyone with a great story and a good idea can bring it to life. And if you appreciate the art of film, I'm not sure if any film lovers are here, but I've got some good news for you. We have a bright future ahead of us, because now the technology is no longer standing in the way of talent. We will see the rise of a new generation of filmmakers. They can develop their own vision and bring it to life without compromising it to the rules of the business, of the film industry. And at least, I think the art of film has entered in the new age of experimentation, and I'm looking forward to see it progress. Right, number 2. Everybody who is honest is interesting. This is borrowed by a great book of Stefan Sagmeister. He's a designer and fellow TED talker. And I think there's a lot of truth in it. If you're working creatively, the more you put yourself into your work, the better it's going to be. I am working in a genre, action sports videography, which is normally about people taking great risks. It is about mountain biking films. It's jumping off huge cliffs. While this is what's normal in this genre, my films are pretty tame. It's basically me and my friends riding our bikes from left to right, from right to left. But we always focus on something like a story, like an idea. We try to present it in an authentic and natural way. We don't try to exaggerate. We just try to keep it as it is, show what we are doing. And I think it's good to see that there's a market, an audience for it. People who prefer to witness a well-told story than watching other people risking to get hurt. Number 3. This is the only way to tackle a creative challenge, I think. Having ideas and judging them are two different things. The only way to go about finding a solution for a creative challenge is to take a piece of paper and fill it up with your thoughts, with your ideas. Don't worry at this stage about evaluating if they are good or bad. You can come back to it any time later and judge them. But if you're trying to judge them the moment you're having it, you're standing yourself in the way. This is not going to work, just my experience. So just let the ideas flow and come back later see if they are any good. Number 4, cross the gap. I'm referring here to a quote from a famous American radio professional, Ira Glass. What he's talking about is the gap between your own taste and your skills. Many people who get started in doing creative work, they fall into this gap because you start doing creative work because your taste is really good, and you start to do stuff, but your taste is going to tell you it's not good. And this is where people get disappointed. They get eventually frustrated, and maybe they stop. But this is the point we have to keep going. Because if you keep going and keep working on it, you will reach the point where your taste is going to tell you, yeah, you're there. What you're doing is good. You have overcome the gap. And learning by doing is the best way to get good at something. Finally, follow your passion and the money will find you. This is something I was scared of all my life, but only recently I've realized how much truth is in here. Because if you're passionate about something, you're going to get good at it. And if you're good at something, you will find someone who's willing to pay you for it. I'm not saying that it's going to make you rich, but you're going to make a living out of it, and I think it's going to be a happy life. Thanks a lot.